Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. You may have heard that ABC canceled its most popular scripted show yesterday after the lead actor sent out a series of bizarre tweets, which she later blamed on sleeping pills. You've read about it. But there's at least one upside to the Rosanne story. The left is now on the record opposing racism. Attacking people on the basis of their race is immoral, they're telling us, and of course they're absolutely right about that. Let's hope this conversation continues and progresses. Liberals may finally concede that discrimination based on skin color really is wrong, whether it's in hiring or promotions or government contracting or school admissions. If they admit that, that would be real progress. It's not happening yet, though. For now, American liberals are still living in that strange, irony-free world where it's possible to denounce racism even as you commit it. That's the same world Al Gore occupies when he flies private jets to global warming conferences. It's the place where attorneys general can yell at you about domestic violence even as they beat up their girlfriends. It's hypocrisy land. It's where liberals live. Last night, for example, MSNBC held a town hall meeting dedicated to fighting racism. Guess who they invited to lecture America on the topic? You guessed it, racists. The special was literally co-hosted by Al Sharpton. Remember him? He's the guy who ridiculed Jews in New York as, quote, diamond dealers. He's the one who denounced a Jewish store owner as a white interloper. That instigated a racial massacre in which 8 people were murdered. Also on stage last night was a guy called Tim Wise. Wise describes himself as a professional anti-racism activist, which ought to be a tip-off that he himself is a racist, which obviously he is. Here's Wise using MSNBC's platform to make ugly generalizations based on skin color. Watch this.
White America has been raised to believe, A, the police are always the good guys, and frankly, that black lives matter less than white comfort. What you are saying is my discomfort with you right now is worth more than the potential that your life could be snuffed in 10 minutes.
Wait, isn't that slander against an entire racial category? Oh, yes, it is. But let's say you want an even more nasty racial stereotyping. MSNBC is the channel for you. They've got it. Here's Tim Wise again. Keep in mind, this is what liberals are now claiming is the opposite of racism.
The gentrifiers of today, their parents or their grandparents ran away from the city to get away from black and brown folk. And now their children and their grandchildren are saying, oh, the suburbs, there's only so many Olive Gardens I can go to, so I need to go back to the city and get my life in the city. But when I do that, I need to have my hot yoga studio and my pottery studio and my stuff represented. And if you intrude on that, I will then call the police.
Are you taking notes on this? Are you getting this? They're telling you on MSNBC that because certain people have the same skin color, they all have the same dumb attitudes. They like the same crappy restaurants. They spend their free time pursuing the same frivolous hobbies. And by the way, they are all, every one of them, immoral. You can tell by the way they look. That's the official position of the American left, the same people currently accusing you of racism. Christopher Harris is executive director of Unhyphenated America, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Harris, what do you make of that, watching that?
Tucker, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now that came to my mind. For example, what's happening in Venezuela. When Tim was talking about people trying to gentrify areas. Well, if you look in Venezuela right now, there are people fleeing a terrible geopolitical socioeconomic issue, and they're going to Trinidad.
Right.
So they have an influx in Trinidad of Venezuelans. And Trinidad is trying to implement rules to kind of push some of them out. Now, most people don't know there's a lot of black people in Venezuela. They don't all look like Hugo Chavez. In fact, South America got one of the largest percentages. Over 50% of the slaves who were taken from Africa were brought to South America, places like Brazil and Venezuela and everything like that. And so here it is. You have people who are black who don't want other people who are black flooding into their country.
So maybe it's more an economic issue. And I think, by the way, there are fair questions to raise about radical demographic change. For sure, it upsets people, and I understand that. But to pretend that it's all about race and that one race is worse than another race, isn't that the definition of racism?
Absolutely. Tim Wise is going to be able to pay his rent this month because he's a racial pimp. That's what he is. I mean, that's what he does. Is he travels around the country, going to colleges, telling young white men and young white women that you are a racist and that you're a benefit of white privilege. And they go on and they tell their parents how terrible they are because a guy named Tim Wise came to my college and told me that I have white privilege. And essentially what Tim is doing is he's assuming a privilege that, quite frankly, I don't acknowledge that he has. You know, I have zero sense of inferiority. And that's one of those things that someone like Tim wants me to believe. In fact,
but you think he wants you to have a sense of inferiority?
Absolutely. And President Bush talked about it. He said it's the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yes.
And that's what's happening around the world. It's what's happening in America, that they're constantly trying to tell young black men and young black women that you have no chance in America because of your pigmentation. But no one wants to talk about the fact that different demographics, all black people are not African Americans. My wife is actually, her parents are from Panama. Her parents came here legally with nothing. They were able to climb the socioeconomic ladder. Both of them attained their degrees. Both their daughters attained their degrees. But yet there are people who are, you know, I guess someone would call me an African American. I don't answer to that term. I'm an American black person. Obviously, you can tell by my pigmentation I'm black. But there's lots of people, even in my extended family, who have not attained what some of my in-laws have attained, regardless of the color of their skin. But Tim Wise would have you to believe that simply because of the color of your skin, you can't be successful in America. And you know what? President Trump, God bless him, what he's doing with the economy right now, it's helping black people.
Well, where do you think a country winds up where the official position is that the races are different, some are more moral than others, and basically they should hate each other? I mean, that is the message that a lot of our elites are foisting on the rest of us. What does that do to the country?
It tears it apart. Quite frankly, they're agents of chaos is what they are, is that they make their money, like Mr. Wise, by helping to tear people apart. With Unhyphenated America, when people ask me what is Unhyphenated America, I said, we are what we sound like. We're an organization that believes that America's best when it's unhyphenated, that if you believe in, if you embrace, if you promote the principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then you're an American. And if there's no need for any prefix or suffix, you're just an American. And that's what needs to be preached and taught on our college campuses instead of having the Tim Wises and the Al Sharptons.
Liberals, when I was a kid, I'm 49, not that old. Liberals used to say what you're saying. They don't anymore. Thank you. That was really nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Tucker.
I appreciate it. Well, the media were in, of course, consensus agreement on who was responsible for Roseanne Barr's career-ending tweets. Watch.
We have a president who was elected after trafficking in barely cloaked racial animus. And so we're seeing a lot of other people who are in many ways mimicking this type of language.
This kind of stuff is a direct byproduct of how Donald Trump behaves, the things that he has said, the things that he does not condemn.
And we have to stop pretending that this president has nothing to do with it, that he's not emboldening racist and racism and giving them a platform and making it okay.
Richard Goodstein is the lawyer who advised both of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns. He joins us tonight. Richard, I don't begrudge any political party or its surrogates in the media, the opportunity to grab an advantage when you see one. But on the subject of the tweets, which no normal person would defend, they're awful. Why the impulse to immediately make it a partisan political issue when there's a human message in this conversation, which is don't attack people on the basis of their race?
Right.
Like, it's that simple. Why the impulse to make it partisan?
Well, certainly what Roseanne Barr did was pathetic, not just to say it, but then to blame it on Ambien. And remember, she also said it was Memorial Day. I mean, it was, and this is somebody who had said the exact same thing about Susan Rice, who had basically defended the whole Seth Rist. I mean,
whatever.
She's going down one rabbit hole.
You don't need to convince me the tweet was bad. I'm there already.
Well, no, actually, there are people I suspect who actually are, kind of joining to her defense, right? Oh, this is somehow her First Amendment rights are being infringed.
I think but I'm not making that. What I'm saying is, look, for most of my adult life, the senior Democrat in the United States Senate was a former Klan recruiter, okay? Robert Byrd. A lot of things named after Robert Byrd. I'm not even attacking Robert Byrd. He apologized. But, let's get a little proportion here. The outrage is selective. I'm not defending the Roseanne crap, but I also think when people are jumping up and down and being like, actually, Trump did this, it's purely political. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, so actually I think that people who don't subscribe to your view believe the following: that Donald Trump has given license to people by saying they're good Nazis, by mocking handicapped people, by basically, the list is endless.
Handicapped
oh, sure. Remember he went like this about that New York Times reporter?
Was he mocking all handicapped people?
He was mocking that guy. That's pathetic. That may be the single most pathetic thing that he's done. And he's talked about Mexicans being racist. Look, the list is on and on. The fact of the matter is, though, when Donald Trump does that, and people say, well, he won, so his staff can go, well, I can mimic people. I can make fun of John McCain who's dying. I can, that's the problem. Then people who are supporters think at his rallies, you've heard people who covered his rally said these people were lovely, and then the rally would start and they would say the most anti-Semitic, anti-female.
So look, I've been on television for 20 years through Democrat and Republican administrations, and the volume and the nastiness, the hate mail I received remains pretty much constant. I didn't blame Obama for the attacks or the death threats I got 5 years. I mean, let's just be totally real here. It's not, look, I understand you don't like Trump, but this is a much larger question. And part of the question is, do people who are engaging in racism, like Al Sharpton, have the right to lecture the rest of us about racism? Do they? Is Al Sharpton the spokesman you want against racism?
No.
Really?
He's not.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you. But I do think that it is undeniable that the fact that Donald Trump spews what he did on the campaign trail and as president to talk about good Nazis is something that sends a signal like, I basically am drawing succor from these people. And it's why he tweets about every stupid thing under the sun. NFL players kneeling, and he can't bring himself to be critical.
What you're trying to do is draw me into like defending every dumb Trump tweet, which I have no interest in doing. I want to talk about the universal principles here, okay? So we're against racism, I hope. I certainly am. We do a lot of shows on it.
Of course.
Is it wrong to discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color?
Well, so that's a different. You're talking about affirmative action.
No, I'm actually talking about racism. Is it wrong to discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color? And if it's not, then why do we care what Rosanne said? But if it is, I understand why we're upset.
Right.
Because you shouldn't attack people on the basis of immutable characteristics.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I think that Roseanne Barr and people like her who talk about black people as apes are wrong.
I agree with that completely. I think it's disgusting. But what's the principle? Is it wrong to discriminate against someone on the basis of his skin color, to hold him back, to penalize him on the basis of his skin? It's a really simple question. Can you answer it?
Of course, but you're acting like somehow slavery didn't happen.
I'm not saying that.
Well, that's the intimation of what you're getting at. I understand.
Why would I? Please.
Because that's what you're getting at.
No, I'm not getting at that. I'm a very straightforward person. I say what I mean. And please don't attack me. I'm asking you about a principle.
Right.
Which is it wrong to hurt people, to hold them back, deny them things they would otherwise get because of their race? It's a really simple question, yes or no.
I agree that people should not be discriminated against.
Please answer the question.
I'm saying they should not be discriminated against their race, but we don't have a colorblind society. Eric Holder and other black cabinet officials have trouble hailing a taxi cab to go to certain areas of Northwest Washington.
By the way, I'm not denying that. I'm merely saying, is it wrong to practice racism against people? Oh, it is?
Yes.
So you would say it's totally wrong to say to a child, because of your skin color, we're holding you back. There's a massive lawsuit against Harvard right now by Asian students who have basically proven that Harvard didn't let them in because of their race.
Right.
Is that okay with you?
Jews used to be subjected to the exact same thing.
And it was wrong.
Right.
But liberals support it now.
Right.
So those people lecture me about racism. Are you joking?
The Harvard argument is that there's a certain virtue in diversity.
Oh, there's a virtue in discrimination.
Because diversity. You call it what you want.
No, I'm not. I'm calling it what it is. Because we both agreed that penalizing people on the basis of their race is immoral. You agreed with that. And yet it's happening right now with the full support of liberals, the same ones who are lecturing the rest of us about racism.
Right.
It's too much. Do you understand?
And I'm saying there's a quilt involved, and discriminating against people on the basis of their skin color is wrong.
Let's stop it. How about that?
But people were held back for hundreds of years,
I agree.
And to basically act like that didn't happen is wrong too.
But I'm not acting like it didn't happen.
I'm not saying you are.
I think it's the central sin of America.
Yeah.
I think it's our original sin. I think it's terrible. But I don't think that racism is okay, and liberals do.
Right.
And I just want to be clear, and I want our viewers to understand that is the official position of the Democratic Party, is that hurting people on the basis of their race is A-okay.
No. The official position of the Democratic Party is that we have to take cognizance of the fact that what happened for 200 years, and if we act like it didn't happen, and that somehow or other we reach a point in life that we just act like skin color doesn't matter, that is basically ignoring the obvious.
So the Chinese kid who arrived here 20 minutes ago suffers for that because of his race.
No question.
And that's okay with the Democrats. The same ones giving us lectures during their anti-racism summits.
Yeah, as I said, I think what the Chinese students are arguing about at Harvard has merit, as it did for the Jews.
But it's not a big deal because they're Chinese. So
not in the least.
I'm
with them.
I hope so. I am. Thank you, Richard. Good to see you.
Sure.